Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the special interview that has been promised since last week. Today is joined my great friend, my brother in arms, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Christopher Berry-Dee. Chris, how are you doing, sir?
I'm doing all right, Luke, my old mate. I'm in England. It's sunny here. I'm bleeding to death with my books. And it's great to be with you.
This is an interview that has been in the making for almost 4 years now. And now we finally get to do it. And let's just start. Let's start the conversation with probably the most important character of this story. And his name is Pete Aldridge. He is the one that introduced us together. Our brother in arms, Pete, who tragically passed away a couple years ago. And it was the introduction of me and you together as brother in arms. Pete, he is sorely missed.
Yeah, let me explain how we met, because it was magic. We spend a lot of time in the Philippines. Both of us were spending a lot of time. We love Philippines. We love Cebu City. And I was in the Park Lane International Hotel. And I went up onto the 4th floor where there's a pool and there's a smoking area up there. And there was this guy there, this baldish guy, big guy, tattoos on his arms, dripping with gold, smoking a cigarette, as I'm doing now. And we just got into business, chatting. And he said, "Oh, you're the author, Chris Berry-Dee, aren't you?" I said, "Yeah, that's right." I said, "What do you do?" And he said, "I'm a Bitcoin billionaire." And I said, "Oh, I don't understand that fucking stuff. What is it?" And we started chatting. We had a couple of gin and tonics and something like that. And he said, "Do you want to invest in Bitcoin?" And I said, "Nah, not interested, mate." He said, "Well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll get you one of these code box things, whatever they put them in." And he said, "I'll put $100 in it." And he said, "You see how it grows?" I went, "All right." And then, of course, we went bar hopping, met loads of our friends bar hopping around Cebu City. And after that, we became very, very, very firm friends. And in this conversation, of course, he happened to mention Luke, you know, the guy that's doing all his design work. And I said, "Well, that's interesting. He's pretty good stuff." Anyway, it went on. And as you quite rightly say, when we met in Manila, and then unfortunately, he wouldn't go to hospital when he was told. And he was getting worse and worse and worse. He couldn't even cross the street, Luke. You know, he had to be helped across the road from one bar to another one. He'd get a taxi 100 yards. He couldn't walk. And then one day his girlfriend rang me up and said, "Pete's died, and he's in a funeral home." I mean, there's a funny twist to this. I mean, it's gruesome, but you know, he's got a good friend called Murat in Turkey, and Murat said, "Oh, Pete's not dead," he said. I said, "What do you mean he's not dead? Of course he's dead. The embassy have been to see his body. He's not dead." And anyway, the upshot was Murat sent me some photographs of Pete laying on this slab. He said, "That's not Pete, Chris." I said, "It is." He said, "No, Pete's not green." But anyway, old Pete loved his life. He believed in the hereafter. He had a God of faith, and he was a very, very clever entrepreneur. He designed lots of things. He did a lot of eye products. He did a board game. We wrote a book together. He was a wonderfully generous man. And when with our viewers look at his photographs, they'll see he's a lovely smile, and he's very much missed.
Yeah, when I first met Pete, so one of the things that I do, my full-time job is I'm a graphic designer. That's how I was introduced to Pete. My main clients over here in the States is wrestlers. And one of the people that I was involved with introduced me to Pete. And Pete kind of gave me my first break there because he got me to do some of his Bitcoin videos. Or, of crypto coins that he was into, that he created some. And then that's how me and his relationship started. He helped me in a bunch of different ways. And then I had heard about you, Chris, through him. And we hadn't really fully formed a relationship at that time, but it was only until I remember the day, and it was last month, some years ago, when I was about to go into my regular job, and I remember I seen the post that you had put that Pete had passed away, and I remember acting so shocked, because it was just I had just spoken to Pete like a day or so ago from that day.
Well, he was texting me the night he died in the morning, but he was texting me that night, and I've still kept those texts. You know, he was on about some deal and, you know, and getting drunk and stuff, and I just couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe he'd gone. But there again, let's be fair, his health was bad. He lost most of his money. Bitcoin, it dropped, apparently it dropped, and he lost most of his money. And I actually, he was really hungry at one point. It's a terrible fall from grace, but he ended up eating pot noodles out of little pot noodles, and he used to eat the greatest food. He spent hundreds and hundreds of dollars on food and hotels. And I put him up in the Oxford Suites Hotel in McCarthy in P. Burgle Street. The manager there, I got him put up in the suite. But anyway, that's it. And he went, and he had a full life, and he's probably happy where he is now.
Yeah, I remember the outpouring, even before we did the website. I remember the outpouring of love from other people. I remember speaking to a few people myself that I had done business with over there in the UK, and it was tragic for Pete to go like that. But then out of his death became our relationship. That is where me and you became brother in arms, and we created together your website, which is now, for the last 4 years, have been opened up opportunities for both of us.
The way I look at it, Luke, it's not my website; it's our website. Yeah. It's a team effort. We've had some bad times, we've had struggles, we've argued, but I argue with my TV producers and my publishers. We argue, but we get through those bad times and we move on. And you are an amazing web designer. That's it. And you're a fantastic guy. That's all I can say. And I think that if anybody had enough wits around them, they would ask you to do work for them too.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I've worked very hard to where I'm at now. Knowing what I know with website design and with graphic design, I've done it since I think 2005, and joining with you and with Pete has enabled me to do things that I wouldn't be able to do otherwise. And hopefully soon, we can actually meet each other if everything goes well. And
I think you'll be at the crime conference in USA next year. It was CrimeCon is the biggest crime event, true crime event in the world. I've been a guest speaker at the one in the UK for 3 years running now. It's absolutely fantastic. There's thousands of people come there. We get all the police, the judges, the forensic experts, everybody else. It's an absolutely amazing event. So I think, with a fair wind, I'll be meeting you at the USA one in the States. And then after that, of course, it goes to the continent.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I've definitely enjoyed seeing all the pictures that are posted up on our website of you meeting fans, of the countless pictures of you with fans. It's so great to see the the different interactions that you've had with especially CrimeCon. And then another thing is seeing the interactions and interviews with you and your buddy, Mr. Sean Atwood. I know I've seen plenty of interviews that you've had with him. And that's great to see as well.
I mean, I've done a lot of interviews, podcasts with Americans. We get on great. I'm doing a series at the moment with Van's World. He's a Canadian. He's South African, but he's working from Canada. A very funny guy. We just hit it off, and those podcasts are up. It's never ending, Luke. You know that. You know what I'm like. It never stops.
Oh yeah, that is for sure. Yeah, I've seen your recent ones with Van's World as well. So let's kind of dive in to something to go with personally with you. What made you become and I know you've probably heard this question a million times, but just I want to know on here in this interview, what made you decide to become an author, especially in the true crime industry?
Well, I had nothing better to fucking do at the time, to be honest. No, I'll tell you what it was, seriously. Yeah, as you know, I was a Green Beret. I was a Royal Marine Commando for about 11 years, I suppose. And I did terrorist work, anti-terrorism work and everything. And when I left the Corps, I took a particular interest in why people kill for fun. Not for religious purposes, not for, anything like that. Why people kill for fun. And I started writing to these serial killers in America. It's I had these true crime magazines. These. I had loads of them. I bought them all, about 240 of them, and all the different serial killers were in them. And I decided to write to them, and I started to get letters back from Harvey the Hammer, he's dead now, Ronnie DeFeo, the Amityville Horror, Henry Lee Lucas, loads and loads of them. And they wrote back. And then I wrote a book which wasn't about serial killers. I decided to write a book about my late grandfather, who was a solicitor. And he defended a man called William Henry Kennedy, and him and Guy Brown shot a policeman in the eyes in Stapleford Abbots in Essex one night. And these two guys were captured. And I happened to be in a second-hand shop, a junk shop in Southampton. And I saw these newspaper cuttings, the old Times newspaper cuttings, right back to the 1920s. And I picked them up, looked at them, and my grandfather's name, Oscar Berry Tompkins, was in it. And I thought, fuck. So I got these newspaper articles, I bought them, and then I decided to write a book. This was my first book, called A Long Drop. And I hadn't got a clue about writing a book, Luke. I mean, I was just way out of it. But I managed to get hold of the Section 5.1 extended closure documents, which I shouldn't have had for another, 50 years, but I got hold of them. And I wrote this book, which I thought was a book, and I sent it to W.H. Allen, publishers in London. And I never heard anything for about 6 months. And then I happened to bump into, this is what you call fate. I bumped into a guy in a bookshop who owned a bookshop in Southampton. And I told him about this book that I'd written. And he said, well, I know Eric Dobby, the managing director. He said, I work for them. And this is God's will. This is what happens. Anyway, again, another few months passed, and I got a letter from a guy called Robin Odell, who is probably the greatest crime historian, UK crime historian ever. Got a great writing DNA. And he wrote to me, and I got this letter, and I opened it, and I nearly fell on the floor. He said, this is the most awful book I've ever read. He said, it's terrible. And I got halfway down the page, I thought, oh my God. And then he suddenly switched, and he said, but the research is fantastic. I can't beat that research. So I went on to write that one. Then I did a book called Dad Help Me Please, was about the hanging of Derek Bentley in England, wrongfully hanged. that became a Reader's Digest. Well, the Reader's Digest in those days became the number one lead title, hardback title. It made the movie Let Him Have It, starring Christopher Eccleston. And it went on to get Derek a post-mortem. You know, they dug him up out of the prison and they pardoned him. And the Home Secretary read the book and he pardoned Derek Bentley. So that was the first two books. And then, of course, I went on to do my Talking with Serial Killer series because I've been writing to all these killers.
And I think that's kind of what sets you apart from every other author, every other interviewer, is that you've interviewed the most serial killers in history. And I think I remember, you know, because our friendship now has been on for the last couple of years, but I remember in the last year and a half, you had been talking to me about probably one of your latest books, which is with the serial killer letters that you've received. And now you're putting it all together into a book, which is massive, because now people get to see what these guys and girls have written to you that were actually serial killers.
Well, let's back up a bit. I did this book called Dad Help Me Please, and the murderer of the guys were, one guy was hanged, I told you, wrongfully hanged, but a police officer was shot between the eyes, not by Derek Bentley, by Christopher Craig. Anyway, the local TV station run by a guy called Fraser Ashford got hold of me. He said, this is a local news story. He said, this is fantastic. You've got all these documents. And I said, yeah. So I went on TV down in Croydon, near London. And then that was it. I didn't hear from him. And then about 3 years later, my father rang me up. He said, there's a man called Fraser Ashford trying to get hold of you. And I said, well, what does he want? And he said, well, you were on his TV programme. And I said, yeah. And well, I rang Fraser, and Fraser said to me, you've been writing to these serial killers, haven't you, Chris? And I said, yeah. He said, how would you like to go out there, he said, and film them? But this is 1994-ish, something like that. And of course, we did. We went out, road tripped all around America, Mitsubishi Shogun. We had some fantastic adventures, interviewed these serial killers, the police, scenes of crime, the newspaper offices, next to kin, death row, electric chair, everything. We did a lot. And when I came back home, I wrote a book called Talking with Serial Killers, based on these letters. And John Blake, the publisher, snapped it up. And he said, this is unique. Nobody's ever done anything like this before, because our TV series, nobody'd ever done it before. Nobody'd ever done that. It's being done all the time now. Everybody's doing it. Piers Morgan, everybody's doing it. But we were the first ever. And I wrote this book, and it has now become, we're Talking with Serial Killers brand, it's become the number one best-selling true crime book of all time in multiple languages. And it sells millions of copies around the world. And of course, we're adding sequels to it all the time. So by fluke, just like I met you, and just let our viewers know that God moves in mysterious ways. You don't plan things, opportunities come up and you take them. Like you take things, I take things. And coming to your point now, letters from serial killers. Yes, I've got hundreds of them. I've got a whole load of stuff I'm working on at the moment from Bobby Joe Long. Some of the vilest material you could ever imagine. And I was just looking at he's executed now, but I was looking at his appeal papers when he comes out as pure as driven snow. But you read this filth, it's disgusting. But the point was about the letters from serial killers is that if I just put the letters in a book, it means nothing. But I've interviewed a lot of these serial killers, and it's not what they write or what they say or what they don't say or what they forget to say that's important. It's their psychology, their psychopathology. Not the handwriting, but they're what's written between the lines when you look at the facts of the case. And I phoned up my publisher, Blake Bonnier, and I said, look, I've got fucking hundreds of these letters and I want to do a book. And he said, we'll have it. And then he said, but while you're at it, do a sequel. So life just goes on. And every book, every story, every television program, every lecture I do, it opens more doors. So it's a continual. I do a series called a masterclass writing series, and I have a bit of cotton, like a bit of thread, and it started off back there, right back there, and you move the thread along, and it goes along, and it goes along, and it goes along, and it keeps adding and adding and adding. And so your life gets richer. You know, I meet people through your website. I get a lot of students, uni people, doctors, psychologists, psychiatrists, judges, police officers. They're all, you know, my writing is still crap, but I get away with it.
Yeah, that is definitely one thing that I've noticed is because, you know, when we're working with the website and we have people hone in, you know, email us every day of most of the time it is students. And you say the thing about the thread. See, I'm currently in college. I mean, I'm almost 35 years old, and I just started college back in August for my graphic design to try to get me a degree. And in one of the classes that I took, one of the things that came to my mind is it's like a puzzle piece. It's like people are puzzle pieces, and we're all different. We're all unique. We all have our jobs. But that's what makes it great, is that when we come together, we all fit into this one big picture. You have your author, your ability to write books, and I have my ability to work in graphic design and website design. But when you put us together, it creates a bigger picture. We may be all unique, but we all come together, and I think that's a lot of what I think people need to understand, is that if we could all come together knowing that our differences could be into one big one big puzzle piece, we have a bigger picture. People can see it. And that's why we need to, instead of hate other people, we need to love other people. No matter what they've done. We all have things to do.
Yeah, well, I don't love serial killers. I've got to tell you, I won't love.
That's true.
I mean, one of our most notorious female serial killers is called Rose West, and her husband was Fred West, and they abducted lots of young girls, and they took them down into a basement of their house and chopped them up and everything. And Rose actually wrote to me, and she wanted to marry me. And I wrote back and I said, that's an honour, Rose. I said, she's fucking ugly, I tell you. And I wrote back to her, I said, look, I consider that's an honour, I said, Rose. I said, but unfortunately, I'm in the Philippines at the moment, and I won't be back for 10 years. I've had Veronica Wallace-Compton, who was involved with Bianchi and Dougie Clark, the Sunset Slayer. I visited her in prison, and she was beautiful. Hollywood, buxom, Miss Whiplash. She was in prison for attempted murder, and she wanted to marry me, and so did the Melanie Maguire, the ice queen out of New Jersey. And she chopped her husband up and put him in suitcases and dumped him in the Chesapeake Bay. Very intelligent woman, lovely letters. But the thing is, but, you know, this is what makes my job fascinating. You know, I've cleared up cold cases in Connecticut. You know, Arthur Shawcross, I did one cold case with him. He's now dead. Michael Ross, I did 2, I think, cold cases to solve those for the police. He's now executed. I've done a few. Kenneth McDuff down in Texas, he's executed. I met a hell of a lot of them. Luke, and they're all different. You know, they're all different. Perhaps the most people say to me, well, what was the most horrible one you've ever met? I said, well, the worst one was, I think, the one I hated most was Kenneth Bianchi, the Hillside Strangler in the Washington State Penitentiary. You know, he's evil. Gutless bastard, but he's evil. And the funniest one was Dougie Clark, the Sunset Slayer, because he foul-mouthed he was, and you could find it, my program with him on Amazon Prime, the serial killers. But he was swearing and blinding, but he just got a funny side to him. He's a funny boat, really. But they're all different, but I wouldn't marry one.
I think that's what makes you unique, Chris, is you know, out of your beginnings of being a writer and through your interviews with these serial killers, you have had some of the most unique relationships you've had with these human beings. It's crazy.
Well, the thing is, the way I look at it, you know, I love Bill Bryson's books. Bill Bryson, the travel writer. I met him, signed his book, signed book and things. And Bill Bryson's, I used to, believe it or not, I used to get the Mail on Sunday newspaper here. And he used to have a supplement in it. You know, he had a page every week. And I used to go into the Kazi for an early morning crap. And I used to read this, and I used to laugh my socks off. And then I bought some of his books, and I thought, this guy's a travel writer, but he takes you on a journey. You're with him, actually with him. He's describing places, he's describing people. You know, he goes off the wall sometimes onto something. And I thought, what a fantastic style. And then, because I've got hundreds and hundreds of true crime books, go back to the 1920s when the old judges were there, you know, and the policeman was saying, my name's PC so-and-so, and I arrested Mr. Bloggs on so, very stiff. And what I've done is I've developed this road trip style where the readers come with me on a coach trip. You know, there we are, come on, bring your packed lunches, and we're going to go and see this killer, but we're going to go to this penitentiary and we're going to see this dumbass cop on the way. And that's what I do. So it's a very serious subject, Luke, but there's black humor in it as well.
Yes, I've read some of your work, and that some of it is gory, some of it's gruesome, but then you insert humor into it, which it kind of gives the reader a break from all the horrendous sights that they can imagine in their mind from reading some of your work. But when it goes into the humor, it kind of gives us a break, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, what I like to do is a roller coaster ride for the reader, because I don't want to get them too depressed. I mean, I'll give you an example with Bill Bryson, right? He's up there where they did General Custer. He's standing on this hill and is surrounded by these white stones like grave markers. And there's a storm coming. And he's looking at all these, and he's talking in the book, he's saying, how depressing, all these young soldiers killed and Indians killed. Oh, it's going to rain in a minute, stormy clouds. I'm getting depressed here. He's writing this, and all he says, fuck it, I need a burger. And that's it. He lives it. You go, fuck, I was nearly in tears then, and now I'm laughing.
Yeah. That's for sure. So tell me, Chris, what do you see yourself now? Is it just continuing to write more books? Is there anything on the horizon that you want to let the people know that's coming?
Well, the thing is, you know, I'm just a bloke like everybody else. But it's, you're famous, you know, the world's number one, blah, 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 blah. I'm just a bloke like you. Thousands of other men out there. I was going to say women. That'd be cross-dressing them, wouldn't I? But it's like it's just I'm an ordinary bloke. I live on my own. I've got a lovely son. I had a stroke at the beginning of the year, so I've got to take care of my health a bit. I'm doing exactly what the doctor didn't order. Still smoking and drinking, but I've got a couple more books to come out. I've got Crime Con, a lot of TV work. But just enjoy life, Luke. Just let it flow.
That's one thing, you know, personally, you know, and you know, like I said before, me and you've known each other now for a couple of years, and
it's more than it's 4 years, 4 years plus, mate.
Yeah, it's been a long time now, and you know, I've been blessed to know you and become a.
Well, I think what I got to do is somehow, I don't know what you do it, but one day I want to take you to the Philippines, and I'll take you to the hotel where Pete Aldred and I met. There's a stone there which I put there where by the pool for him, and you'll come to the Philippines, and it'll be a life changer for you, because they are the happiest, more warmest, generous people on the planet. Yeah, no hidden agendas with them. I mean, the birds are nice as well. I can tell you that, but it's a different world, and it gets me. I mean, I've been to Russia, I've been to Ukraine, I've been all over the world. There's one place that if I called a second home, it would be the Philippines.
Yeah. I've seen pictures and you've told me stories about how beautiful it is there and how great the people are. So, you know, I haven't been out of the United States yet. So any trip to go out of the UK would be great for me.
Well, I've started off 2 books. One book, I forget which one it was now, but I say, here I am, laying on a beach, sun-kissed beach, swaying palms, gin and tonic in hand, and a big fat cigar. How are you today? And then I start my book off the wall. The recent book, I'm in Cebu City, and I'm talking about the traffic, and then just as a start a book, it's called Madness. Homicidal Madness, the book's called, and I say the traffic's fucking terrible in here, the city. I said, you know, you step off the pavement, you'll get wiped out. Then I say, but they've got exceedingly good brakes.
Oh yeah,
it's a crazy way to start a book. But the reader, all my thousands of readers, whichever country, Poland, wherever they are, they go, oh, Chris has started on one of his little travels. Let's see what happens next, and that's it.
I think if I could give any advice to everyone that's watching this right now, the biggest piece of advice is that you only got one life. You only have one. You only have one life to live. So why not make the best of it?
Right. Well, let me just ask you a few questions. You know, you're very well known for your wrestling graphics. I mean, they're amazing. And you've got some of the most famous wrestling stars in the US, probably overseas, that are clamoring for your work, your artwork. And I think that, you know, again, you're a very, very talented man. And, you know, we met by fluke through Pete. We owe his memory that much. But your work is just stunning. And the amount of effort you put into that website to be on top all the time. And if I've got a query, I want to add something, you're there. And you don't get many web designers doing that these days. They get a set fee and then they forget about their client. But you look after your clients like I look after my readers. They're you know, you look after them and you make them feel special. And you know, I've known you working all night long on a project, you know, to please a client. And, you know, I think you deserve a hell of a lot of credit, Luke, you know. And I don't give credit easy, but you'll have to give me a few dollars for this interview, mind you.
You know, I before I met you, the reason, so I've been doing graphic design since 2005. That's where I started learning, and I had known how to do some stuff over the years. You know, we got to understand that I was about 15, 16 years old when I first started. I'm almost 35 now, so it's been a long time. But I think it was in probably about 6-7 years ago, right before I met you, when I had a big break in the wrestling industry. Now, I've been a wrestling fan most of my life, but then I had a friend of mine introduce me to another friend of his that got me doing really famous wrestling work with their posters. And then that opened up an opportunity for me to travel to Tennessee and to Florida, to places and meet people that I watched growing up in my childhood on TV. Being able to open up that opportunity with wrestling, and it made my heart really full. And if y'all go on my Facebook page, there's a picture of me in my room, and in the background are autographed photos that I had made that I met these people. And
but do you do prints and sign them for people?
Me personally, nobody's asked me for my autograph, if that makes sense. But
that's all right. Okay, so what about the facsimiles, signatures of some of these famous wrestlers?
Now I've got stuff that I've made that was legitimately signed by, famous wrestlers. I've had even a few famous celebrities. I think the most famous person, even outside of wrestling, that has ever signed my work is by the name of a lady called Margot Robbie. I'm not sure if you know who she is, but I know when I mention that name to my people over here in the States, they know who Margot Robbie is. She played Harley Quinn in the Suicide Squad movie that they did over here in the States, which was a massive.
Yeah, I know the name. Yeah,
she played basically Joker's girlfriend in that movie. I've had her sign my work, and there's a long list of famous people in the wrestling world that has signed my work that I haven't met yet, that I have met personally, and it feels an honor when I know that when I walk up to a famous wrestler and they know who I am. That makes me feel good.
Does the new king in England know who you are?
The King of England?
The new one, Prince Charles, is coming out. He's he's got coronation this week.
I don't think he don't know who I am.
I'll tell you what, you're lucky, because he's a fucking arsehole.
Does he call you that, Chris? Are you Sir Chris yet?
I won't be now, will I?
I guess not.
It called me a lot of other names, but certainly not Sir Chris, not yet anyway. Actually, incidentally, my ancestor was Roderick the Great, Prince of Wales, and my more recent ancestor was Dr. John Dee, who's the court astrologer to Queen Elizabeth I. And the interesting thing about him, he was an alchemist as well. He formed the biggest libraries in England, and he planned Queen Elizabeth I's coronation date. And he's got this thing about, he tried to turn base metal into gold. That's what he tried to do, but he didn't. And I'm like him very much, because I've been trying to turn ink into gold for fucking years, and I still haven't got any.
Trust me, I've tried to turn my graphics into gold too, and I'm up the same boat, brother.
Yeah, well, we'll put up from some of on the website some of Dr. John Dee's memorabilia, and we'll put a picture up of him. And he's a famous guy. Anybody who looks up Dr. John Dee on Wikipedia, they'll see he's an okay guy. They locked him up in the Tower for a long time, in the Tower of London. He pissed somebody off. But he did Sir Walter Raleigh's maps, and he designed the Freemasonry symbol. You know, he was all right, old Dr. John Dee. Anyway, anything else?
Well, is there anything else you want to tell the viewers before we call it to a close here?
Well, we got our own sign off, haven't we? We've got our own particular sign off, and so I'll do it. And first of all, I want to thank everybody for watching, because I think that I hope you enjoyed our little chit chat. It's very informal. As I say, Luke and I have been sort of talking about this for a long time now, but we didn't think it was appropriate. But it's a general chit chat, nothing serious. But I want to thank everybody for watching. We love you all. And thank you, Luke, for this opportunity. From my heart, I really love you. You're a great guy. And what we say is, no nightmares, please.
Oh, that is true. No nightmares. And thank you, Chris, for taking time out of your busy schedule to do this. I would call this more of a conversation piece than an interview, because you're my brother in arms, and this has been a great conversation that we've allowed each other to do with each other, to share with the world, you know, how we became friends and how we honored Pete, the website, you know, my work with graphic design, your work with writing with serial killers, writing the books that you've became so famously known for.
Well, I tell you, I do lectures up to 500 people at a time in theatres and stuff like that. And I tell every single one of them, we have a good old chit chat. We do these, you know, with we do those sort of lectures and talks. And the thing is, I say to everybody, if you want something, you can get it. Doesn't matter who you are. I'm a humble guy. I just come from nothing really. If you really want something, go out and grab it by the balls and take it home. And just be nice to people. And you'll get paid back in spades.
That is true. That is so true. All right, Chris, we're fixing to end this, but like you said, no nightmares, please. And God bless everyone that watches. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to watch this special interview, this special conversation. Chris, thank you so much.
God bless America.